Alrighty, and welcome to Symbols. This is actually our second community meeting here. Today is Wednesday, February 22nd, 2023. Just as a reminder to everyone, these meetings are public recorded and they will be posted to YouTube later on. So if you have any issues, feel free to like mute your audio or turn your camera off. But otherwise, it'd be great to see everyone's faces and to see who I'm talking with. Um, just as a reminder that we have a monthly meeting every fourth Friday. So this is the one that happens for the Americas, which is supposed to be an American friendly time zone, which obviously is at 11 a.m. this morning. We also have one in the evening, later evening for me, I should say, which actually happens to fall on Thursday at 9 a.m. tomorrow, India Standard Time. So we have actually a second meeting of this for our community meeting. It's just basically to give a second option for people who are looking to join and look for more information, but in a friendly time zone on the other side of the globe here. So just as a reminder that this meeting's for you, everyone's encouraged to bring up topics or ideas or anything that you might find you have questions about Symbl, the platform, conversation stuff in general. If you're not able to reach any of these times, so if you're here watching the recording on YouTube, it's definitely encouraged that you come, bring your questions, but if not, you can always reach out to us on Slack or in the Google group, so you can just drop a message there. And if you have any topics that you'd like to talk about, you can see the agenda there. I will drop this also in chat for everyone to have so they can open up and follow along if they want. So drop the link there in chat. So if you have anything that you'd like to talk about after we kind of go through some announcements and fun stuff like that, you can open up the agenda and meeting notes here, and you can drop more agenda items right here. And just go ahead and drop them in, and we can get to them towards the end of the meeting. And then also too, if you're so inclined, you can add your name and who you're with, or if you're just looking, you're just representing yourself and you're looking for more information about conversation intelligence and like what Symbl does and like what more information about our platform, you're welcome to add your name and the company you're representing, or just, I like to say you're just on your own as a self. And yeah, so with that, we will kick off our meeting here and just go over some announcements from current announcements, which is just basically a recap of last month's meeting. Last month's meeting, we kind of went over the community repo that we kind of kicked off. And if you actually, this link right here. So in the community repo, I highly encourage everyone to go and take a look at it. It's just github.com/Symbl.ai/community. In this repo, especially on the main page here, you'll have everything you need to know about these community meetings, specifically where the Google group is, how to add this to your calendar, and then the Zoom links to join, like for today, and stuff to convert to your time zone, get to the agenda. Also, just as a reminder, since these are public facing meetings, we do have a governance doc, which kind of just says, hey, this is how we are going to like run these meetings, and this is our code of conduct and how we want to treat each other in these meetings. And it's basically, be nice to each other, and it's a free open space to talk about like whatever. Just be very respectful of others and treat each other with respect and kindness. And so we have governance doc, code of conduct, and then also towards the middle and towards the end, you'll find basically a bunch of information here about how you can get started. So if you're a bunch of like training tutorial videos, blog posts, and then also some code. So if you're looking to get started, we have like a level 1. And if you are kind of familiar with kind of like how to process conversation, we got level 2, then like going beyond the basics, this 3, and then like more advanced stuff. And yeah, it's basically this repo is there to kind of get everyone bootstrapped to get started in participating in the community. And then also if you're so inclined, like how to contribute. So like we have a process and flow for if you're interested in contributing code to any of our public facing repos. Like we kind of have like rules of engagement, how it works, how code reviews are done, how to open a pull request in GitHub, and all that fun stuff. So having said that, I'm going to pause here and just to see if there are any questions. And since this is our second meeting and we have some folks here on the call, I'm going to just open it up. If anyone wants to introduce themselves, I'll start first. So my name is David Von Thenen. I am a developer advocate at Symbl. I ended up joining the company back in August, and since then I have worked previously at a bunch of different areas. I kind of have jumped around quite a bit in my career, going from mainframes to doing storage related stuff, doing backup recovery solutions, doing a whole bunch of stuff as it relates to virtualization and specifically on the VMware stack, and that transitioned into cloud provider related stuff. So Amazon, Google, and all that fun stuff. And then I ended up finding my way here. So you'll see a lot of that stuff kind of like float in to some of the stuff that I might talk about, different like, perspectives and aspects of like how that might relate to conversation. But yeah, it's kind of me in a nutshell. I don't know. I'm just going to open it up. Feel free to chime in if you want to do like a brief intro. And if not, that's totally cool too. And yeah, we'll just go from there.
Hi, David. Squibus here. Sorry, I'm going to keep my camera off
Sure,
because
no
we've got
worries.
rolling blackouts in South Africa. So
Oh,
I'm,
wow.
I'm sitting in I'm sitting in the dark here. Yeah. So I'm the chief evangelist for Human First, and I've got a very keen interest in just training data, and obviously Symbl. It's a huge source and potential source of training data, converting speech into text. So I'm really here to learn more,
Okay.
and to learn more about the product as well.
Sure. Awesome. Cool. Well, glad that you're here. Yeah, well, definitely like the ideas as we're going to get to in the next section here, kind of have like some curated content. So if we don't have any questions or things to talk about, I'll do kind of like presentations to cover like topics that I think are of interest to people. So like today we're going to be talking about trackers. But yeah, there's the whole ideas is we're going to have a bunch of, these meetings, currently once a month. Maybe we might step it up to be maybe bi-weekly. But the idea is to like, yeah, talk about specific use cases or features about Symbl in the platform. And yeah, that's kind of what we're here for. So thank you for the intro. Anyone else who wants to do an intro? Going once, going twice. Okay, no worries. Okay, so yeah, it basically, if you have any questions, feel free to stop me at any time. And, like I said, this is kind of like your meeting. So you can stop, ask questions, get more information. And having said that, we're going to talk about trackers today. And I threw together some slides here. And hopefully everyone can see that. Yes, no, maybe so.
Yeah.
Yep, looks good.
Okay,
It's
cool.
coming through.
So yeah, today we're just gonna talk about trackers, like kind of like what are trackers, like what are the use cases for them. We're going to cover like a specific example. So I kind of like want to take a real world example and see how we could possibly apply that to a particular use case for like maybe like a fictitious company. And then I'm going to do a very brief demo. just very simple, just to kind of give you an idea about like how to use them and like what to expect when you're using trackers in code. Um, so I already, oops, I already did my intro, but that's fine. So yeah, so the agenda, we're going to cover trackers, use cases, an applied example, demo, and then we'll have questions at the end. So what are trackers? So trackers is actually one of our coolest, in my opinion, one of our coolest features and coolest tools when we're processing conversation intelligence, conversational insight. So the idea of trackers is you can, and we'll actually go and look at the platform interface and like the code in a bit. But basically, in a nutshell, the way trackers works is you kind of have like this higher level concept or this umbrella, and you create your own kind of vocabulary around what that topic or this higher level umbrella is. And you do that in the form of providing actual words. So they could be potentially one word, or they could be many words or a phrase kind of like linked together. And these words and these phrases kind of bubble up to this higher level concept of like what you're trying to track or like what you're trying to be notified about. And the platform is actually pretty cool in that it not only takes these words or these phrases, but what we're actually doing is we're not just taking the words and we're not just taking the phrases and like doing a one for one. Did I say this word or did I say this phrase exactly verbatim? What actually ends up happening on the back end of the platform is it takes that, if it's a word, it's a word, but it takes the the context or the meaning behind that word or the context and meaning behind that a particular phrase, and it takes that intent or that context behind it, and it tries to match up that content and that intent, that intention, to what is being if we're doing like real time, whether it's streaming using our WebSockets, or if we're doing like asynchronous, post processing of like a video or audio conversation, it takes the intent as it's happening and it matches up the intent behind like what's encompassed or what's this umbrella idea for what a tracker is. So as an example, if I had this idea and I wanted to track within a conversation, if I wanted to track um like the idea of like going on vacation, so if I wanted to see if in a particular conversation, if like someone is talking about going on vacation, so some of the things that you might enter in a vocabulary for identifying someone is going on vacation or at least talking about vacation, going on vacation, you could put things like I am, the most obvious one is I'm going on vacation, right? So that's the most obvious one. You could do other things. So like boarding a flight. I'm, uh, I'm taking a cruise. I plan on going on a road trip. So you could enter those phrases into this higher level travel or vacation umbrella. And what the backend platform does is it recognizes and understands that it's going to take uh, this concept of cruise or road trip or boarding a plane, and it's going to take that, and as you're speaking or you're analyzing a conversation, whether real time or async, it's going to take that idea of vacationing, and it's going to match that up to what is being said in that particular conversation. So that's a pretty simple example of doing one, and that's what we're actually kind of going to demo a little bit later. But it's basically matching up intention or concepts to what the intent or concept are being currently talked about. And it matches up those things in order to signal, hey, someone is talking about like going on vacation. Like I said, it supports asynchronous. So if you use our async API, which is, posting an MP3 file or a video file, or you can do a post to that, or if you have the like MP4, MP3, it supports many other video and audio formats, but if you have them like in like an S3 bucket that's public, you can point it at a URL to do this conversational processing. And you can also do it in real time. So if you're using WebSockets, basically open up a WebSocket as you're talking, and it's, picking up the microphone input, say for like a Zoom meeting or some other CPaaS platform like Vonage. It will analyze what's being said, and it will pick up on the intent of the conversation, like the intent of what is being said, and match it up to the trackers that you have created within the Symbl platform. And then there's also, you can create your trackers on your own, obviously. And there's also a bunch of, like, I think there's like 20 or so ish, like pre-canned ones that you can just enable, like, by clicking a box. So these are things like, I believe some of them are like, how to identify small talk. I think there's one for like apathy, and then other ones are, I think there's another one for like kind of like expressing when someone's talking about like they're dissatisfied with something in a conversation. It will pick up on those things. So yeah, you can either use our pre-canned ones or create a whole vocabulary for your trackers that you want to track on your own, so you can custom tailor them to your own business. So I'm going to pause there and see if we have any questions about that.
David, just a question from our side.
Mm-hmm.
So I went through the documentation just prepping for this presentation. So I was just curious about, I see there's mention made of zero shot. So are we still getting to that? Because I'm really interested in just the large language model aspect. But if we're still getting to it, no worries. I'll be
Yeah,
patient.
I'm not going to cover the very nitty gritty details of, like, how the language model works and all that stuff. I'm just covering at a high level. So for those that don't know what zero shot is, it's basically you're trying to capture the intent of like what is being said in a conversation without having any pre-modeled data in order to figure out what's going on. So kind of like zero shot is like, hey, I have nothing or no frame of reference that I have before, and I'm going to try to predict in real time what is currently being said. Obviously for transcription, but in our case for trackers, the intent of what is being said so that it can be matched up to a tracker. I don't know if you want to go in more detail about that, or if you want to uh, keep it at that high level.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that answers my question, David. I love the idea of what you mentioned about the canned intents and
Mhm.
also creating your own custom intents and having the possibility of the zero shot approach. So no, it's just it's a very rich approach. So no, that's fine. We can that's enough for me.
Oh,
Thanks.
yeah, for sure. And I'll go into maybe a little more detail here, because like the Symbl platform kind of works on unstructured data. Um, so that's basically means like, hey, we're not geared towards any particular, like domain or business use case. We handle them all because we're actually processing language as it's happening. And so kind of your way or your ability to like really kind of fine tune like what you're interested in extracting from a conversation is kind of like using trackers. There's also another feature that without you providing any input, there's a feature that tracks topics within a conversation. The ideas are very similar, except for what happens is it uses the frequency of what is being said in order to understand that this is a major topic or theme that is being talked about. Whereas the contrast to trackers, it's basically saying anytime someone mentions something related to like vacation or travel, based on the vocabulary that I'm providing, I want you to notify me like immediately. And that's kind of like the difference between the two. We'll cover topics. We can definitely talk about it today too, but we'll cover like the idea of topics in a different session too. Um, but
Great, thanks.
the reason why the zero shot is very important is because if you were to create a platform that processes conversation that's very specific towards like medical. uh, you can have a bunch of uh, you know a bunch of model training data so that you can create a model that uh, better assists like what is being said in a conversation. But the downside of doing something like that is that you're if you're missing anything in your training data that it cannot identify, it's not going to pick up on it, right? And so the idea, what we're trying to do here at Symbol is like work on unstructured data. So we, without having any prior knowledge to what the domain or what the topic is, it's figuring out in real time what the intent behind something is. And that's kind of like the difference between kind of like the two models here of like how you process conversation. So uh, that's one reason why Symbol can work on so many different, whether it's like call center related stuff or sales enablement or that kind of stuff. That's why Symbol can kind of like work in all of these spaces, because it's actually processing the language and like what is being said and then trying to extract intent from that. So cool. If anyone else has any questions, feel free to chime in. So yeah, kind of already described this, but it's kind of just for your information. I can post the slides later after the meeting, and I'll also probably tweet them as well. But this is just kind of like a high level what I've already described. So trackers compose of vocabulary, which is words or phrases. Um, it uses zero-shot learning to find out, to analyze what a word or what the intent or context of a particular word or a phrase means, and then it reduces it down to that intention, uh, and tries to match up the intention to the intent of what is currently being said. So I know that sounds like a lot of words. So I'm me, I'm actually not like a word person. So like I'm one of those people when you say something to someone and uh it kind of sometimes it takes me a little bit to like understand it, and I'm kind of like a visual learner, so I kind of tried to create something visually that would capture this. And so this is kind of what I came up with. It makes sense to me. Hopefully it makes sense to you too. But this is kind of visually what I see how trackers works. So if you look on the upper left here, you kind of have this idea of vacation. So vacation is this higher level tracker, this container of when you want to be notified when someone's talking about a vacation. And like the three phrases that I used, which it represents my vocabulary for this vacation tracker. So my phrases are go on a cruise, board a flight, go on a road trip. And it distills the concepts behind each of those phrases down to this green, like, hexagon that says, this is the intent of what is behind this tracker. So the larger your vocabulary, the wider the net that you're going to cast when you're trying to narrow down this intention. I kind of kept it very simple. You could do things uh, like another thing that seems weird, but you could throw in there, kind of expanding on this idea of casting a wider net. You could add as another vocabulary or phrase that's in there. Maybe you're doing like a walking tour. So like now by adding this phrase, you're kind of adding things that are associated with vacation. So you can cast a wider net based on like what the vocabulary is in your tracker. And so it takes this intent now, this kind of this greenish looking pea colored box of what the intent behind this vacation tracker is. And so kind of the bottom where this arrow is as the conversation's flowing through time. So, as we're starting from the left and, talking in our conversation. So it might start out, it's been a while since I've taken time off work. Symbol on the back end will find what the intention of that phrase or that sentence is, and it will see if it matches the intent of, my tracker. and then it's Wednesday and I've only had a few more days of work left. Finds the intention, doesn't match. I'm counting the hours until Friday, doesn't match. And then, the next thing that's said in the conversations, I'm planning on flying to Japan on my vacation immediately after work. And the intent of that is going to match up to the intent of my vacation tracker. And so in your code, or actually in your, in code, you're going to get a tracker notification saying that basically says someone has mentioned travel. It's going to identify what sentences, and it could be many sentences, contribute to how it identified, how it picked up this intent of this tracker. It's going to provide those sentences, like who said it, and give you the ability then from that point to kind of like spider out to like what other things you might be interested in that particular, like what is being said in that particular conversation. So that's kind of like visually how it kind of works. I hope this makes more sense. I'm going to pause here for anyone to ask any questions. Hopefully, I think the picture makes a ton more sense, at least it did to me. So I'm going to pause right here if anyone has any questions. I see something in chat. Oh, someone says hi. Hello. Anybody have any questions? No? Okay. So let's move on then. So that kind of gives us like the basic idea of like how trackers works at a high level. And we're going to kind of cover some use cases for like how you can take trackers and how you can apply them towards your particular business. So I kind of like, there are many different aspects of like, use cases where you can apply them to. I've just listed a few here. There's 4 of them. So you can use trackers for like sales enablement coaching, regulatory compliance, matching human intention to like your business. And so like in sales enablement, what that might look like is like objections to proposals, uh, like pricing negotiations, competitive landscape. So if someone says, I see, company X, Y, and Z is doing this with this particular feature. So you can set up trackers to like key off of, um, uh, not specifically the company's name, but like, I'm, I'm looking for, competitive kind of stuff. This is what my competition's doing. So you can set up trackers to like literally identify that. And you can even if you want to get very detailed, instead of just doing this at a high level, you could even enter information about a particular feature that a competitor is using and describe the feature within that tracker. So your tracker, your larger container would be this feature. And the vocabulary around that could be how that feature works. Obviously can't get into like crazy the mechanics of like 1 + 5 = like whatever, but you could put in things like when I use this feature for my competitor, it behaves like this, and how that tracker might be important to your particular organization is if you have that tracker, if in your conversation with potentially with the client, and you have, this conversation enabled intelligence going in your meeting, and you have this tracker that talks about competitors and how this feature for a competitor might actually work. You could have it immediately trigger based on what is being said, saying, hey, I think, at company X, Y, and Z, they do it this way. You could have the tracker identify that and say, hey, this is being said about this company's feature. And as a response, you could say, I'm going to pop up like a notification that maybe has a little blurb about how that feature works at your competitor. And then maybe the difference between like what your competitor does and what you do, and like have the compare and contrast right there to your, like posting it to your salesperson so that they could speak to points that are there. So that's kind of like a very basic definition of like kind of like how sales enablement works. And then there are other aspects where you could use for like coaching. So you can like, because we do like sentiment analysis, you can literally create trackers to like track empathy and politeness and fairness, and then use kind of like our sentiment analysis in order to tie those two things together to say like this is a positive interaction or this is kind of like a negative, like what is being said is kind of like has a negative tone to it. And you can use those two things to like do like call coaching. Another one is like regulatory compliance. So if you like, you know, like as an example for HIPAA, if you create trackers for like identifying things that are sensitive that you might not want to say, you could set up trackers to like key things around like the word social security number, or like if you're in a meeting and it's like a privileged or confidential meeting, you could track off like home address, phone number, and when it identifies those things that are being said in like as you know this privileged conference with a you know potential patient, when it hears those things like someone's about to say like ask something or say something about that, you could have something that pops up on the screen that's lets the you know the healthcare provider know like don't go down this path, don't ask for this information because it's protected under HIPAA. So you can do things like that, which I think are pretty cool. And but yeah, kind of like this last bullet point is like matching up the intent or the business rules, and trying to like match them to like how you can like leverage trackers to like aid and assist you in relation to your business. So I'm going to pause there and see if anyone has any questions. So yeah, kind of maybe to talk a little bit more about this. It's yeah, it's kind of really interesting because you can use them both as a positive, like to enhance something. So like that's that sales enablement thing. Maybe you have something, if a customer says, "Hey, I'm looking for something that does this," and you know you have a junior salesperson that's on the call that doesn't quite understand the portfolio of products the company has, it could pick up on those keywords and saying, "Hey, Mr. Salesperson, get a notification because the customer mentioned something, says, oh, we actually have something. Go, you know, this is like kind of like a little brief synopsis of what that product does. Go pitch it to or talk about it with your, you know, your customer." And then like in the regulatory compliance example, I'm actually using trackers as a means of shutting things down or like, you know, trying to curb or direct the conversation in a way that, you know, doesn't expose like privacy information related kind of stuff. So it's kind of interesting. Like you can see like both I'm doing it to enable things and I'm doing something to purposely discourage things from happening in a conversation.
So hi, this is great
Yep,
overview. Thanks for the info. Just this is Glenn, quick question.
sure.
So just to back up, so do you have these trackers like, do you have them listening to live phone calls, like meetings that you're having with clients? Is that like the ingestion of the data? Is that what you lay these on top of in
Yeah.
these
So
examples
it
you're using?
really depends like what you want to use it for. So like if in like the sales enablement case, like if you have like we have many integrations with like different CPaaS platforms. If you you know built a you know system to capture whatever business rules that you want to have surface based on like what is being said off in the conversation, like what insights are being derived from it. So you could have instead of like sending out a Zoom meeting, or you could use Zoom actually, because we actually have a Zoom integration. You could have, you know, send out a Zoom link or I don't know, like Vonage or Twilio. You have like a Twilio meeting because you're using their platform as a means of communication towards with your customers, clients, this, that, or the other. So when you share out like this meeting link to like, you know, for people to join the meeting, just kind of like what we did today, you know, they would log in to whatever you know video chat platform that they're using, that you know your company's using, and you would then have this integration built in with that you know video conferencing platform, and you would have your rules captured based on like what your business does, and you would have that, integrated with the UI, obviously on your side. So like it would identify me in this particular case as the moderator. And if we were actually talking about sales, if we were having a sales call right now, if you could have a Zoom integration where it's saying, oh, you mentioned that you were looking for something product that does this, and if like my company has this particular product, I could have something on my side because I'm kind of like the the driver of this sales meeting, have a pop-up that shows up on my side that says, hey, we have something that kind of meets this need for this customer. Maybe you should go and talk about it and see if you can like, upsell them or whatever. So like that's kind of like the idea of what you could do with sales enablement. There are many other things and use cases for sales enablement, but that's just kind of like one example that I'm kind of giving.
Understood. Thank you.
Yep, for sure. Okay, so let's like kind of like look at a particular example, and we actually kind of already covered one. But I'm going to just pick sales enablement because it's pretty straightforward and easy to understand. So here, kind of like I picked three things that you could use trackers for to identify particular aspects of a sales conversation or a sales, call meeting where you might want to get notified of as the driver of, or as, the company that's hosting the sales meeting. And so like one, I kind of gave like three examples of like things you can use for trackers. So like one is objections to proposals. Another one is kind of like price negotiations and objections. And then kind of already used this example already, but like this competitive landscape. So like what a competitor does that might be different than like what your product does. So like some ideas for things you could put in this objections to proposals. You could create a tracker that's literally called objections to proposals, and your vocabulary or the phrases that you might want to use or you could potentially use for your objections to proposal trackers could be like doesn't understand the value of, gotten burdened by, yielded little results. So those individual things could be the vocabulary that compose this tracker. So when you're having the sales call, it's listening in real time to like what's being said. And when it hears the intent of something like this, where it's like an objection to a proposal, not necessarily saying those words, but like the more vocabulary you have describing what you're looking for, the better results you're going to get. When it sees that intent behind what is being said, you would get then a tracker notification saying, oh, like they're objecting to this proposal. And this is the word, or this is the phrase or sentence that triggered this objection to your proposal. And from there, you could then identify the sentence and maybe have additional code that breaks down like what is being said in that sentence to create prompts for your salesperson. So yeah, that's kind of like the idea of like how you can use trackers. So like if you're like doing price negotiations, as a tracker, you could do like, identify a concern, empathize, meet the goal. So like the idea is to try to anticipate the way a conversation is going in order to kind of get in front of it. So that's kind of like the idea, like what you could potentially use a tracker for. So I'm going to pause there and see if anyone has any questions. Alrighty, cool. And so I'm just going to have like a small demo. It's not going to be anything crazy. I just kind of like want to show you kind of like what it's all about. So I'm going to escape out of this. So we're going to first take a look at so if you log into the Symbl platform, platform.symbl.ai if you haven't signed up for it. You can create a free account. I actually always use the free account. The free account, you don't need to drop in a credit card or anything. You get 10,000 words or 1,000 minutes. Even me as a developer advocate, I've only burned 100 minutes so far in my monthly allocation. But basically, this gives you a way to kick around what to test drive the platform, use the APIs, go through the API Explorer and give everything a try. So if you're really interested in how topics works, you can go ahead there. But since we're talking about trackers today, so you would log into the system here, into our platform, you go to tracker management, and you can see that here are a bunch of already pre-canned trackers that have been created that you can just enable by simply clicking a checkbox. And by enabling it, you can identify apathy in a conversation, or oops, I don't want to delete that, or dissatisfaction in a conversation. So when the conversation is being analyzed and in real time, and the Symbl platform has this particular tracker enabled, it would then be able to track dissatisfaction in a particular conversation. So that's kind of some of the pre-canned stuff that's already here. And in this UI, you can also create your own. So you could just go create custom tracker here, and you can type in your name, description, category, and then here's the vocabulary that you would enter. And you can just keep adding more and more words and phrases to capture what the intent behind that tracker is. And I've already created one, and I'm just gonna edit it just so that you can see. I kind of going with this whole same theme so that we're not changing things up too much. I'm creating this vacation tracker. This is my description. It's in general, using English. And these are kind of my phrases that I've created in order to capture the intent of what this tracker, what I want to get notified when this tracker gets identified in a particular conversation. So it's basically just things to do about travel, so go on a cruise, kind of that fun stuff. So like I said, I'm not going to go into too much, but let me see if I can stop sharing and then share my terminal here. Hopefully. Okay, cool. So I'm actually so what I'm going to use for this demo here, I already have my app ID and app secret. So the Symbl platform requires a credentials, or in the form of a cookie or a hash. There's an app ID and app secret. It's already been pre-configured because I kind of like Go, so the Go programming language. I'm using the Go SDK to drive this example of this travel tracker that I've created. So this guy right here, that's already enabled. And if you're interested about the Go SDK, which is really cool, you can go to github.com, D Von Venen, which is my account here, and Symbl-Go-SDK, and you can type that into your browser. It's an open source project. It's a Go binding for the Symbl platform, and you can do all the fun stuff, create a Go-based application to do conversational insight processing using Symbl. In this particular case, we're going to go to change directories to examples. There are many examples here. We're going to go to the streaming example here. And the reason why we're going to do this is because I'm going to run this example. It's pretty simple. It's just going to take the microphone on my laptop, and it's going to take the conversation that I'm saying off my microphone on my laptop, and it's going to, in real time, using WebSockets, stream that to the Symbl platform. And I'm just going to be talking about random things, and eventually at some point I'm going to talk about travel and hopefully, if everything works correctly, we'll get a travel notification back to us, and travel tracker notification back to us, just so we can see that. So let me go ahead and get that going. So to run it, it'd be just, so we have the streaming source file right there. So just go run streaming. So using those sentences, I'm going to basically go through this last example. Oop. It's been a while since I've taken time off work. It's Wednesday and I only have a few more days of work left. I'm counting the hours until Friday. I plan on flying to Japan on my vacation immediately after work. So I'm basically planning on taking a vacation. Oh, shoot. There we go. Trying to figure out how to stop the thing. So if you notice towards so I'm scrolling way up here. So if we go towards the beginning of our conversation, basically as I was talking, I know there's a lot of things flying around in the background, but as I was talking, it was basically doing live transcription. So you can kind of see it here. So it started out, it's been, right? It's been a while, right? And then blah, blah, blah. So as it's, doing the transcription, it's, picking up and doing all the transcribing. You're gonna get various different, as it's like transcribing, you're going to get like it building up this sentence as it's happening in real time. And when it finally gets to like the period in the sentence, it's going to put out like this is the message that I've transcribed. And so it's been a while since I've taken time off and work. So it's been a while since I've taken time off work. So this is the original first sentence that I said. And, this is the message response, which is basically saying, I have identified this as a full sentence, as a full message. And this is where you kind of get like more information about that. So yeah, basically the conversation, like what I was saying, goes on and on and on. And then towards the end, I kind of want to just show you some other cool things. We didn't talk about entities, but see if we can, and this one should trigger. Okay, so when I start saying I plan on flying to Japan, right? So it's going to pick up, where is it? Japan, it's going to identify it as an entity, like as a location, person, place, thing. And it's going to give me an entity message somewhere down here. Getting closer. Oh, here we go. So here. So after the sentence was completed, which is I plan on flying on my vacation immediately after work, Japan on my vacation immediately after work. So that's the full message. So this should be a message response. And then basically from that, once it's understood that this is the message, it's going to like, right, in real time, derive, insights. So it's going to identify Japan as a entity, right? So you see entity response message, manage Japan. This is the sentence I identified what triggered the thing. And here's an entity response. And then if we go down towards the end somewhere, yeah, so it's basically saying I'm planning on taking vacation, and this is the crux of the demo here. It's basically taking the conversation here, and as I was saying it, it's identifying that this is related to my tracker, and you're going to get a tracker response, basically a tracker notification, and it's going to provide you the message ID and the text that was there. And so from this message ID, what you can do then is you can do this in real time or post or whatever. You can take that message ID, find out where it's happening in the middle of the transcription, and kind of like look at messages before, or not messages, word sentences that were said before this particular sentence. And if you wanted to like start to derive more context on it. But this one's pretty kind of straightforward. I intentionally, I'm taking vacation, triggers the vacation tracker, and that is kind of it. So I'm going to pause there if anyone has any questions. That's kind of like the demo. I opened the agenda back up here. Basically in the agenda, kind of gone over the Trackers 101 use cases and applied example demo, which we just did. You can do it on async, so you can post-processing for video or audio file. You can do real time, which is what we did, using the Go SDK, using WebSockets to do tracker detection in real time. I've provided some resources here, the documentation, kind of more information about like trackers. You can test this out using our API Explorer. So in the Symbl platform, you can go to the API Explorer here, and you can try it on your own without having this canned presentation that I've created. You can just go ahead and use trackers here. You would definitely want to like create your tracker, and identify like what you'd want to capture. And then, you could use the API Explorer to kind of help drive this, drive your kicking of the tires for trackers. And then provided some code examples. I'm partial to Go, so I gave you how you actually process async and real time using WebSockets or async. And there's also some Node.js code for doing async and WebSockets. There's many other API bindings and stuff, but kind of a back end and a front end language. And I'm going to pause there and kind of just open it up for any topics or questions everyone might have here. Any questions that anyone has? Anyone want to bring up anything else non-tracker related? That's cool too. If not, then I guess we're going to go ahead and conclude our meeting here. I'm going to stop the recording somehow, maybe.
Hey, David, I have a question.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Do you have like any examples of like, I know that you guys do sentiment analysis. Do you have like any examples of like what the UIs you can build around that to kind of,
As it relates specifically to sentiment analysis or just in general?
That's really what I'm interested in. But I mean, if you just know the in general, then maybe go with that.
Yeah, so we do have different integrations. So here we go to github.com. Oops, I can spell, I swear. Symbl.ai or Symbl.ai. And so basically this is our GitHub, and there's many different integrations we have. And if you come down here, I think we have a Zoom one here. So we have, like, as an example, if you were wanting to do something with Zoom, you can pick up and use this kind of as a starting point for like building out an integration. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and specifically look to see if there's one for doing sentiment analysis. I don't know off the top of my head if there is one, but what I can do is, how about for the next meeting, I can make sentiment and analysis the next topic, if that's of interest to you.
Yeah, that would be.
Okay, cool. Sure, let's go ahead. We have now picked the topic for the next meeting. So let's go. Oops, just kidding, oops. I don't know what that is. Ah, okay, cool. So yeah, I'll see if I can like round up something for a demo. Kind of go into sentiment analysis, like what it is, how it works, and yeah, we'll use that as our topic for our next meeting.
Awesome. Thanks, David.
Yep, no worries. Cool. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, I'm gonna